All right, some more breaking news coming in from the BCCI meet that was going on in Hyderabad. The working committee has decided that the BCCI will take legal action against the West Indies Cricket Board for abandoning the tour the way it did, and in fact, all bilateral tours between the BCCI and WICB stand suspended from now on. That's the latest coming in. India taking a strong view of the way West Indies abandoned the series midway. Rasesh Mandani, my colleague, joining me over the phone line from Mumbai with the latest on this. Rasesh, what more can you tell with us? This, of course, is the BCCI taking stern action against WICB.
Yes, unsurprisingly, the BCCI is taking the West Indies Cricket Board to task. We told by sources in the board that they believe there have been losses that have been incurred to them. Remember, India was due to play 3 test matches against West Indies, which would have been about 15 playing days, and then additionally a one-dayer and T20 which could not be played. They have been compensated somewhat by Sri Lankan board agreeing to play on a very short notice, but clearly they want the West Indies Cricket Board to be a bit for not being able to rein in its players. BCCI believes they did all they can to convince the West Indian players to play, but eventually the accountability lies with the West Indies Cricket Board. Them so not being able to rein in their players and abruptly cancelling the tour. All bilateral cricket between India and West Indies has been suspended. Obviously, the legal action will happen during the due course of time. But remember, West Indies Cricket Board is financially a weak cricket board, and this is a huge setback for West Indian cricket.
Absolutely, Rasesh. Also, keeping in mind that the BCCI has incurred losses worth close to 400 crore rupees. Any sort of a monetary fine that we're looking at this point in time? What are you hearing on that front?
Well, the BCCI are willing to say on record that they're going to initiate legal proceedings. So that is what that is aiming at. Remember, their internal account of the BCCI says that about 400 crores that they stand to lose out on if you look at all the sponsorship contracts, and if you look at the broadcast revenue that they were due to earn if the test matches would have been played, and the money that would be distributed, eventually the board would distribute to its association. So taking into account that it's about 400 crores that they believe they stand to lose, and that on those lines the BCCI would be looking to initiate legal proceedings. Remember, this matter would be taken up at the ICC level. Who's the chairman of the ICC? It is Mr. N. Srinivasan, who also heads the BCCI. So clearly the BCCI is not willing to relent as far as taking action against the West Indies Cricket Board is concerned. And for a country which once ruled world cricket, the West Indies Cricket Board now not having quality of players to compete with the stronger teams, and now financially in a weak position, this could be the worst possible news. Right,
Rasesh, have you been able to get in touch with any of those officials, anyone from the BCCI? Of course, that meeting was taking place in Hyderabad, but any more details on, what are the finer points that were discussed in that meeting?
Like I said, the meeting's just been concluded, but this isn't come as a surprise. This is something that the board officials were speaking about even before the meeting had begun, that the West Indies Cricket Board brace up for some strong action, and this is exactly what we are seeing. Not just legal proceedings and the money that West Indies stand to lose. Remember, West Indies has played India in 3 out of 4 previous 4 years, and they've made some significant money out of this. Any country that plays cricket against India stands to earn some revenue out of it. But it's the suspension of the bilateral tours, which is possibly going to hurt the West Indies. India was due to play against the West Indies in 2016, and going by the strong stance the BCCI has taken right now, that tour seems to be in jeopardy.
Right, consulting editor Boria Majumdar also joining me over the phone line right now. Boria, as we are talking, this stern action coming up, but not really a surprise. What do you make of this action that the BCCI is now planning to initiate against the WICB?
It's not a surprise, but at the same time, it does put a lot of things in jeopardy. I mean, what happens to India-West Indies bilateral tours? What happens to the ICC Future Tours program? What happens to the fate of West Indies players? The bilateral relations between these two countries? A lot of questions will have to be answered now, Sana. I mean, while it doesn't come to me as a surprise, but at the same time, cricketing world sort of is now getting to be divided, because you have only 5 or 6 countries at the top of the world cricketing ladder. I mean, West aren't good enough. So even if within these countries legal proceedings are initiated between the two, one of them being the strongest in terms of financial muscle, what happens to world cricket? So it's a huge, huge development. But what happens to West Indies cricket from here on? How do they respond to this? Only time can tell.
Absolutely, Boria. But also questions will now be raised, as you said, on many fronts. But also, from what Rasesh has been telling us, still no word on what happens with the West Indies players as far as the IPL is concerned. Do they continue now or do they not? Because if they do not, that means more, there's more trouble ahead for not just the board but also the players, as the individual careers are also in jeopardy.
That's what I mentioned to you. There are two parts to this. One, if you are actually initiating a legal proceedings against a particular board, each of these players have contracted to the West Indies board. And if you follow the rules of the IPL, they need an NOC or a non-objection certificate from the respective board. Will the West Indies board give that clearance? Henceforth, if the BCCI initiates a legal proceeding, what will the players do? Will they want to break away from the West Indies board? Because the IPL cannot be seen to be sort of, destroying the edifice of world cricket or national cricket, in this case the West Indies. So several questions will now need to be answered. There is no doubt that the future of West Indies players in the IPL now stands in jeopardy. But whether or not, actually these players will not be able to play or not, only time can tell. But as I said, this is a huge moment for world cricket now that BCCI has decided to initiate proceedings. Bilateral tours, for example, will certainly be in jeopardy, and that will mean a huge problem for West Indies coming in the near future.
Absolutely. This is a tough action taken by the BCCI as expected. It has already told the WICB that, better brace up for strong action. So legal proceedings will be initiated and all bilateral, tours between the BCCI and West Indies Cricket Board stand suspended. Shivani Gupta, my colleague, joining me live from the newsroom right now. Shivani, this is indeed a big move, bold move by the BCCI, if I can say so. But as we were talking about, raises questions over the future of India-West Indies cricket.
Oh, definitely. This is a big question mark on the future of India-West Indies cricket. BCCI, taking a very tough action against the board by declaring that all future bilateral tours for the next set of FCP stand suspended. That's a huge, bold move, and that sends a clear message that they're taking it very seriously. Remember, Sana, before this meeting, we were hearing reports that the BCCI is unlikely to claim damages, which could be up to the tune of 400 crore rupees, because clearly that is going to break the back of the West Indies Cricket Board, and perhaps they were not going to be able to to give these damages to the board. But with this action, I think what the BCCI has shown, initially at least, that they're very much in the mood to not just take legal action, but also, take whatever action they can do as a board by suspending tours to the country, which is again going to be a huge monetary loss for West Indies. So a very tough action by the BCCI. We're yet to hear if there's any decision taken on the West Indies players' participation in the IPL. That could be further trouble, but it looks like that they will not go down that route, because that could create fresh trouble for the BCCI as well, vis-a-vis the IPL franchises, who will not like that decision if the West Indies players are not allowed suddenly. So at least for now, BCCI has given a very strong message. Niranjan Shah from the BCCI is joining us. Mr. Shah, what do you make of this decision taken by the BCCI to suspend all future bilateral ties? That's a very tough action taken.
Yes, BCCI meeting was there, but I was not present. But what I hear from you, I say board must have taken the best interest of BCCI all this decision. And you have to have taken some action, because otherwise in future, how any tour will survive? Because player can't just leave like that from the tour going off and everything, because there are so many legalities for BCCI is also involved.
Right.
And there's an abrupt cut off of tour.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Shah, if you can hear me, go ahead. You were saying there are a lot of legal tangles for the BCCI itself, and that's why it's decided.
We may also, because there are so many contractual obligations to our sponsor, our media rights, lot of things are involved. So, in the best interest, BCCI working committee must have taken this decision.
Do you think the BCCI will decide to go one step further and even ban West Indies players from participating in the IPL, or will that be too much, given that the IPL is a standalone separate tournament in itself?
I know it's anyway, IPL is part of the BCCI tournament, but that decision in future board will take, because board general body is coming on 20th November. I think that decision may be taken at that time, but board will take in the best interest of BCCI, whatever decision they take.
And final question to you, Mr. Niranjan Shah. The board in itself has decided to take legal action against the WICB, the West Indies Cricket Board. But what action should the board push for from the ICC on the West Indies Cricket Board?
No, there are some rules and regulations in ICC also, and there is a binding agreement between all the countries of the board. So legal action is part of the whole thing. So I think board must have seen all the legality of ICC, and for them, for ourselves also, and see that they may have to take all the action.